The basics of successful conversations: honesty, the right attitude, interest in the other person, openness about yourself. Talking is like playing golf, driving a car, or owning a store. The more you do it, the better you get at it, and the more fun you have doing it. But you have to understand the fundamentals first. I've been fortunate to have achieved a certain level of success in talking, maybe enough so that as you are reading this book, you are thinking of yourself. Oh, sure, he can say talking is fun. He's good at it. It's true that talking has come naturally to me, but even those who have a natural ability for something have to work to develop it. That's what turns a talent into skill. Ted Williams, the greatest baseball hitter I ever saw, and a man blessed with more natural ability than anyone in my lifetime, took batting practice like everyone else. Luciano Pavarotti was born with a wonderful voice, but he still took singing lessons. I have a natural ability to I have a natural ability and inclination to talk, but I had plenty of moments when talk didn't come easy. My inauspicious debut. If you could have been a fly on the wall in the Miami Beach radio studio 37 years ago and witnessed my first morning in broadcasting, you would have bet the ranch that I was the last guy who could even survive, much less succeed as a professional talker. It happened at station WAHR, a small station across the street from the police station on First Street, just off Washington, on the morning of May 1, 1957. I had been there 3 weeks, hanging around, hoping to break into my dream world of radio. The station's general manager, Marshall Simmons, told me he liked my voice. Another thing I can't take any credit for, but he didn't have any openings. That didn't discourage me. I was willing to take my chances, and I told him so. He said fine. If I hung around, I'd get a job the next time he had an opening. I had just set out of I had just set out from Brooklyn, knowing I could live with my Uncle Jack and his wife in a small in a small apartment within walking distance of the station while waiting for my big break. I didn't have any money, just my uncle's roof over my head for shelter. I went to the station every day, watching the disc jockeys on the air, the newscasters reporting the news, and the sportscaster giving a sports result. I watched in silent fascination as I saw stories come over the AP and UPI wires for the first time. I wrote a few little stories myself, hoping somebody would use them on the air. Suddenly, after 3 weeks, the morning DJ quit. Marshall called me into his office on a Friday and told me I had the job. Starting at 9 o'clock Monday morning, I'd make $50 a week. I'd be on from 9 until noon, Monday through Friday. In the in the afternoon, I would be doing newscasters and news and sportscasters and sportscasts until getting off at 5 o'clock. My dream had not my dream had come true. Not only was I getting on the radio, I was going to be on for 3 hours at a time every morning, plus another half dozen times or so every afternoon. I was going to be on the air as often as Arthur Godfrey, the superstar on CBS. I didn't sleep the whole weekend. I kept rehearsing things to say on the air. By 8:30 on my first morning, I was a basket case. I was drinking coffee and water for the dryness in my mouth and throat. I had the record with my theme song, Les Elgards, swinging down the lane, ready to cue it up on the turntable as soon as I went to the studio. In the meantime, I was getting more nervous by the minute. Then Marshall Simmons called me into his office to wish me good luck. After I thanked him, he asked, "What name are you going to use?" I said, "What are you talking about?" "Well, you can't use Larry Zeiger, it's ethnic. People won't be able to spell it or remember it. You need you need a better name. You're not going to use Larry Zeiger." He had the Miami Herald open on his desk. There was a full page ad of ad for King's Wholesale Liquors. Marshall looked down and said simply, "How about Larry King?" "Okay, fine, that will be your name, Larry King. You will host the Larry King show." So there I was with a new job, a new show, a new theme song, even a new name. The news comes on at 9, and I'm sitting in the studio with swinging down the lane, queued up ready to broadcast the Larry King show to a waiting world. My mouth feels like cotton. As my own engineer, always the case at a small station, I started the theme. The music comes on, then I fade the music down so I can begin to talk. Only nothing comes out. So, so I bring up the music again and fade it again. Still, no words coming out of my mouth. It happened the third time. The only thing my listeners are hearing is a record going up and down in volume, accompanied by any human voice. I can still remember saying to myself that I had been wrong, that I was street gabber, but I wasn't ready to do this professionally. I knew I would love this line of work, but clearly I was not ready for it. I didn't have the guts to do it. Finally, Marshall Simon, the man who had been so kind in giving me such tremendous opportunity, exploded as only as general manager can. He kicked he kicked open us he kicked open the door to the control room with his foot and said five words to me, loud and clear. This is a communication business. Then he turned and left, slamming the door behind him. In that instance, I leaned forward. I leaned forward towards the microphone and said the first words I ever spoken as a broadcaster. Good morning. This is my first day ever on the radio. I've always wanted to be on the air. I've been practicing all weekend. 15 minutes ago, they gave me my new name. I've had I had a theme song ready to play, but my mouth is dry. I'm nervous, and the general manager just kicked the door and said, "This is a communications business." Being able to say at least something gave me the confidence to go on. And the rest of the show went fine. That was the beginning of my career in talking. I was never nervous on the radio again. Honesty. I learned something about talking that morning in, in Miami Beach. Whether you're on the air or off, be honest. You can never go wrong in broadcasting or in any area of speech. Uh, Arthur Godfrey Arthur Godfrey told me the same thing about how to be a successful broadcaster. Let your listeners and viewers share your experience and how you feel. When I made my debut as a television talk show host, also in Miami, I had a similar experience. The only other time I've been nervous on the air since that first day on the radio. I'd never been on TV before, and I let that make me anxious. The producer sat on a swivel chair. Big mistake because of my nerves. I kept swiveling back and forth, and every viewer out there could see it. It got to be so amusing so I went with my instinct. I put the viewers in my positions and told me I put the viewers in my position and told them I was nervous. I said I had been in, radio for 3 years, but this was my first time on the television, and somebody had put me in this swivel chair. So now everybody knew my situation, and I wasn't nervous anymore. That made me talk better, which made me more successful on that first night in TV. All because I was honest with the people I was talking to. A person, a person recently asked me, suppose you were walking down the hall at NBC News and grabbed you by and someone grabbed you and sat you down in a chair in a studio. He shoved some paper at you and said, Brooke was sick, you are on. And the light came on. What would you do? I told them I'd be absolutely honest. I would look into the camera and say, I was walking down the hall here at NBC and someone grabbed me, handed me these papers and said, Brock was sick, you're on. When I do that, immediately the whole audience knows I've never done news. I don't know what's coming. I'm reading something that's strange to me. I don't know which camera to look at. Now the viewers are all in my boat. We are going through this together. They know I've been honest with them and that I'm going to give my best effort. I have successfully communicated to them not only what I'm doing but the dilemma I am in. Now I am in a much better position with them than I would have been if I tried to fake it. Conversely, if I am on top of the world and everything is great and I am able to communicate this to my audience, I have them with me for the same reason. I am making them a part of my experience. The rest of the formula for success: the right attitude, the will to talk even when it might not be comfortable at first, is another basic ingredient for becoming a better talker. After that fiasco on the radio in Miami, I formed that attitude. When I managed to survive that case of mic fright, I made a commitment to myself that I was going to do two things. I was going to keep right on talking. I was going to improve my ability to talk by working at it hard. What did I do? Everything. I hosted the morning show. I did the weather. I filled in as the afternoon sports reporter. The business report. I anchored the news. I gave speeches. If somebody called in sick or wanted to take a day off, I volunteered to work a double shift. I grabbed every opportunity I could to do as much talking on the air as possible. My objective was to be on the air and to be a success at it. So I told myself I was doing just what Ted Williams did when he felt it was necessary. I was taking extra batting practice. You can take batting practice as a talker too. In addition to consulting books, now videos on how to talk, there's a lot you can do yourself. You can talk out loud to yourself around your house or apartment. I do. Not often. I haste to ads, but sometimes. I live alone, so that from time to time I'll say a few words off the cuff or try out something I might want to say later in a speech or on one of my shows. There's there's no reason for me to feel ashamed, feel embarrassed about it, because there's nobody else around anyhow. You can do the same thing even if you don't live alone. You can go into the room by yourself, into the basement, or use the time when you're driving the car, and then you can practice simply talking better. You can also stand in front of the mirror and talk to the image. This is a common technique, especially for people trying to improve their ability as public speakers. But it works for everyday conversations too, and it helps you to train yourself to make good eye contact, because you're automatically looking at the image across from you, your reflection in the mirror. Don't send for the man in the white jacket and the net to come and get me when I tell you the next technique: talking to a dog or a cat or a bird or your goldfish. Pet talk is a great way to practice talking to others, and you don't have to worry about being talked back, or to get interrupted. Beside the willingness to work on it, you need at least two other ingredients to be a good conversationalist: a sincere interest in other person and an openness to them about yourself. I think it's apparent to viewers of my nightly talk shows on CNN that I'm interested in my guests. I make sure to look them right in the eye. The failure to do this is a downfall of many people, and one we will talk about later. Then I lean forward on my chair and ask them a question about themselves. I respect everyone on my shows, from presidents and Hall of Fame athletes to Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy of the Muppets. And yes, I had them on too. You cannot talk to people successfully if they think you are not interested in what they have to say, or you have no respect for them. I remember something Will Rogers once said: everybody is arrogant only on different subjects. It's worth remembering this whether you are talking to me, talking to one person on your way to work, or to a TV guest in front of an audience of 10 million people. The corollary of this is that everybody is an expert on something. Everybody's got at least one subject they love to talk about. Always, always respect their expertise. Your listeners will always be able to tell whether you respect them. If they feel you do, they will listen more attentively as you talk. If they don't, if they don't, nothing you say or do will win them back to what you are talking about. The remaining ingredient in my formula of success is an openness about yourself when you are talking to other people, to others, like my candor with my audience when I developed that severe case of mic fright my first morning on the air. The golden rule: do not do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Applies to conversations too. You should be as open and honest with your conversational partners as you want them to be with you. This doesn't mean you should talk about yourself all the time or divulge personal secrets. In fact, just the opposite. Would you want to hear about your neighbors' gallstones, your co-worker's weekend with her mother-in-law? Probably not. So don't use yours as material of conversations. At the same time, you should be willing to reveal the kind of information that you'd ask for another person. Telling people what's your background is, telling people what your background is, what your likes and dislikes are, is a part of the give and take conversation. It's how we got to know. It's how we get to know people. Regis Philbin and Kathy Lee Gifford are good examples of talkers who exhibit the openness about themselves when they are talking to their guests. They come into your room easily and naturally, and they're not afraid to exhibit their tastes or to tell stories on themselves without making themselves the focus of their talk. They are themselves. They don't try to fake it if their story or their guest produces a sentimental tone or some other kind of emotion, they are not ashamed to show their feelings. Regis and Kathy Lee obviously know there's nothing wrong with showing a sentimental side if it's a sentimental moment, or the fear or sadness or whatever this story or the guest might involve. The audience in the studio and at home see that and relate to their openness and their obvious genuineness. Anybody I have ever talked for more than a few minutes know at least two things about me. I'm from Brooklyn and I'm Jewish. How come they know that about me? Because I share my background with everyone I come in contact with. It's a part of me deep inside, and I'm proud both of being Jewish and coming from Brooklyn. So many of my conversations are dotted with references by me to my background. I enjoy sharing it with people. If I were a stutterer, I would share that with you. I would share that with the person I am talking to. It's nice to meet you. My name is Larry King. I have this problem of stuttering, but I am happy to talk to you. Now you have gotten your condition out in the open. You don't have to be afraid to talk to the other person, because you just shared your situation, which they would find out immediately anyhow, and you have been upfront about it, so there's no pretense. The conversation takes on a freedom that will enable both of you to enjoy it more. It won't cure your stuttering, but it will help you be a better talker, while also winning the respect of person you have started talking to. Mel Tillis, the country western singer, takes this approach. He has enjoyed a highly successful singing career and is absolutely charming as a guest in an interview. Even though he is a stutterer, it doesn't show when he's singing, but it does when he's talking. Instead of letting it bother him, Mel is completely upfront about it, jokes about it, and is so completely at ease in being himself that he puts you at ease too. I had a guest on my TV show in Florida who was born with a cleft palate and spoke in a way that was not at all easy to understand. But he was delighted to be on my show. and talk about himself. He was a multi-millionaire. He was a multi-millionaire despite what some people would consider a handicap. Guess what did he? Guess what he did to become a millionaire, a multi-millionaire. He was a salesman, but he approached anyone he was talking to with no pretense, no attempt to hide the obvious that he talked funny. He became successful because he adjusted to his situation and helped others to do the same.